Across Europe and the world, there is ongoing interest in mountains as areas of biodiversity hotspots and the origin of fresh water and food staples on which societies depend. These areas are also threatened by climate change, and their local populations have to contend with natural, social and economic barriers due to their remote geographies. Scotland is the UK's most mountainous country. Scotland's hills are located within the Scottish Highlands and the Southern Uplands. The largest hills, those over 3,000 feet or 914 metres, are known as Munros. Mountains in Scotland are different to those in continental Europe. But given our northern latitude, the land does not have to be high to be challenging to manage, with limits on what the land can produce. In Scotland, we talk about hills and uplands, not mountains. The Scottish Land Use Strategy identifies semi-natural land, including hills, mountains and moors, as the predominant landscape in Scotland. While still part of the European Union, Scottish agricultural policy included additional payments for those farming less favoured areas, so-called due to the constraints generated through slope, climate and soil conditions often associated with higher elevations. Recent farmer-led groups, including those farming hill and upland areas, advise on how land-based production in these fragile environments can tackle the climate and biodiversity crisis, as well as helping to meet the Scottish Government's future net zero targets. However, land-based fragility is not the same as socio-economic fragility, which considers fragility in terms of sparsely populated areas, for example. Scottish mountain areas differ from areas with very low population density and average incomes to areas with increasing populations and relative affluence, such as around the Scottish national parks. In general, more people are employed in the service sector, even in remote rural areas, than in the land use sector. As well as being areas of astounding natural beauty, these hills can be areas of production, consumption and recreation. These activities generate multiple types of value, be it economic, socio-cultural and environmental. This is through linking the natural capital to a final marketed product along a value chain. Value chains are comprised of the businesses involved in producing, processing and selling products and services, i.e. adding value along the chain, such as from estate or farm to supermarket shelf. As such, value chains integrate a range of policy areas from land use and land use change through to food and drink policy, tourism, energy, transport, retail and vocational education. Scottish mountain value chains draw on the natural resources of Scottish mountain areas to create opportunities for businesses and communities in rural areas. Scottish mountain value chains include a range of products such as food and drink value chains, including breakfast puddings, gin, heather honey, lamb, mineral water, Scotch beef, Scotch whisky and venison. Tourism, recreation and nature value chains such as hill walking, sporting game, nature and adventure tourism, winter sports, Highland cattle breeding and rewilding. Fibre and materials. The range of material mountain products include artisan wood products, beeswax products, forestry timber, heather jewellery, and mountain wool such as Harris tweed. And finally, utilities and public goods, including drinking water, hydropower, investment in carbon sequestration, and wind power. The commodity-based value chains, those of foods and utilities, transport the products out of the mountains to the consumers in urban areas, including exports to international markets. However, in other cases such as tourism or recreation, the consumer comes to the mountains. In many cases, value chains form value webs, such as hill walkers enjoying local food and drink at their tourist accommodation. What is interesting is where commodities have been elevated to premium products through using a sense of place to add value. This can include formal certification processes, such as PGI schemes for storing away black pudding. Many of Scotland's mountain value chains seem to be less localised than across the rest of Europe, with less local value added and more dependence on the lowland processing and distribution economies. Many products assumed to be associated with mountains are not necessarily produced or consumed solely in the mountain regions anymore, such as Highland cattle. One of the issues that the European Horizon 2020 project Moving will address is how to retain more value both economic, social, cultural, and environmental, in these mountain areas. In Scotland, improving the sustainability and resilience of mountain value chains may prove useful to helping Scotland's green recovery. Improved mountain value chains can reduce the fragility of rural areas through a more explicit recognition of how mountain natural capital offers opportunities for rural development. Value chains can help meet the latest national planning framework aims of more sustainable and inclusive growth. Finally, they may help to foster greater public goods from the land as desired in the follow-on from the Common Agricultural Policy.